Hello and welcome to episode 112 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is October 4th, 2021. Today I'm wearing a fairly old cowl that I knit many years ago. It's called the Strider Cowl by Susan Pandolf and it's part of her Lord of the Rings series. So Strider is Aragon, and it's this beautiful lace and cable pattern. This is one of my favorite cowls because it's just the one color and it's fairly dark and it goes very nicely with all my loud and colorful pullovers and cardigans and things. So this is what I'm wearing today. And today I'm wearing my Carnaby crochet along pullover number 1. Last week I was wearing number 2, which I worked into a cardigan, and I thought it'd be fun just to see this one after you saw the other one last week. So this is crocheted with Opal sock yarn, DK weight, in neon colors. It's almost exactly the colors that are in the pattern, completely different from the version that I showed you last week. I crocheted this a bit tighter because the pattern said it was going to be fairly big, so I didn't want it too big, so I chose a smaller crochet hook. And by the time I realized my gauge was completely off, I'd already finished the first piece, which was this one. So it's like half the back, and I didn't want to undo it. I used all the colors and it's a fairly big piece, so I decided, it's going to be a little smaller, and they said they were going to give instructions on how to make it bigger if you wanted to crochet a bigger size, because it's basically one size as long as you crochet the pieces for it. And what you then do is you sew them together and then you crochet around, and by crocheting around you get this one color strip down the side and the shoulders and at the bottom, and then you can decide how many rounds or rows you crochet around, and you get a bigger size. So that's what I did. I crocheted enough rows for it to be big enough, and then for the sleeves they were supposed to be as wide as half the front, so like this wide. And I felt that was too wide, so I made them smaller, and then they were a bit too tight, so I crocheted a few rows of black onto the sides, and then I did not do short rows. I just changed the stitches so that it's like single crochet here and then double crochet up here, to make it a bit wider here and a bit narrower down here. Sorted the colors differently for the sleeves, did the same with the other one, with the blue one that you saw last week. Yeah, and I'm really happy. I like this bright pullover on a grey day like today. It's nice to be wearing something so colorful, but it's a bit difficult to find the right accessory to go with it. So I'm really happy with my Strider cowl that just gives me a bit of warmth around the neck, and I can still wear the bright colors. Yeah. So last week was the first week after my holiday. It was really full of stuff. So some days I hardly got any knitting or crochet done, but there's still enough things that I can show you, as I got new yarn as well last week. So I rearranged the yarn in my shop. There was lots of work to be done, but as I said, I'll still have enough of things to show you. And one of the things is that I'm going to show you 2 old finished objects for a reason. So one of them is the Geckolino that I showed you last week as a finished object that wasn't blocked, but now it's blocked. And as you can see, or if you may remember, that it was quite a bit smaller last week, and I blocked it as aggressively as I could. So it did grow quite a bit, and it's a nice size now, just like this cowl. This is about 100 grams and this is 100 grams. So it's just to have a bit of warmth around the neck, but as you can see, it has a quite a bit more depth now, so it sits around the back. For a moment I was tempted to wear this with this pullover, but then I thought, no, it's just too much. It's just too many colors going on. I mean, the neon colors are sort of similar, but then this has blue as a background and this one is black, and I thought, no, it's just too much. Now I'll find something else to wear this shawl with. But this is the Geckolino that I showed you last week, and this is what it looks like blocked. Yep. And then the other thing I want to show you that I've shown before is this kids pullover that I knitted out of 3-ply sock yarn. And I meant to show you the yarn, but I forgot about that. Anyway, I used 2 different colors and held them double, and my sister used one of the colors that I used and then a different color and held it double, and she knitted this pullover, which is for the little brother of the boy who's supposed to get this pullover. And I just wanted to show you what it looks like if you use one color is the same and one is different, but the pullovers look quite different, but still they harmonize because there's the one color that's the same, and I thought it was quite interesting. I used heartstring, the pattern Heartstring by Jorge Locatelli. It's supposed to have a contrast color around the yoke. I didn't do that because I had this colorful yarn. My sister used the same pattern, but when she got to the yoke, she preferred to do a raglan decrease. So it's not exactly the way the pattern is written, but we thought it'd be fine for the brothers to have. One has a raglan, one has the rounded yoke. And I just wanted to show you the pullovers before we send them off. Yeah, that's why I wanted to show you. So these were the old things. Then on to finished objects from last week. And I have one finished object, one thing that I finished, and that's my granny square pullover. I followed a pattern, I roughly followed a pattern from a book, from this interesting Scandinavian crochet book. Forgot to bring it, but it's I think it's linked underneath the video, so if you want to have a look at it. I'm not sure whether there's an English version out. I'm linking the German version that I have. Most of the projects in the book are fairly simple, like this one. It just says crochet 2 big squares and 2 little ones, and then the little ones are folded in half and they become the sleeves, and the 2 big ones are the front and the back. I think, and the pattern has just I think double crochet and single crochet. I use the granny square, the classic granny square pattern, and the pattern says to do the squares and then sew pieces together. I decided to crochet all the pieces together. So I finished the back, and then when I did the last round of the front, I crocheted the side seams together, and that's the reason it's not a really like tight seam, but you can see that I just did the slip stitches in between the double crochets, and it's a very open seam, but I think it goes nicely with the rest of the pattern. I crochet the shoulder seams together, and then once the front and back were attached, I had already crocheted together the sleeves on the last round. On the second to last side, I folded in half and I crocheted this seam, and then on the last side of the square, I crocheted that sleeve onto the front and the back. So all the seams look the same. It's all crocheted together. I didn't have to sew anything. Really happy with that. I blocked it, not very aggressively. I just blocked it a bit sideways, not the length, because I know it's going to grow longer by itself just from its own weight. But I wanted a little bit wider, so it was okay that the sleeves are fairly small. But because the front and back are so wide, the sleeve only starts like slightly above my elbow, and that's okay. I used 400 grams of sock yarn, sock weight sock yarn, and this is all that I have left from those 400 grams. It's this little bit. So one piece, there was literally just this that was left, and then I had one piece that was left, and then one piece that one, and then So I almost exactly use 400 grams of sock yarn, which I think is quite interesting. And it's also, it shows how much more yarn you need with crochet than with knitting, because I can knit a long sleeve pullover with 300 grams of sock yarn. Yeah, so that's my finished object. Really happy with it. And I will probably be wearing this next week. So if you want to see what this looks like on me, then make sure to watch next week's video. Yeah, that's everything, all the finished objects of last week. Now on to works in progress. I again did not knit on the Madeline socks. I have to make sure I'll do that this week. But I continued, I started the second sock of the Ma Bon Mon socks, the bonus pattern that I got during the Sock Madness, and I knit the cuff and then stopped, so I haven't started the pattern yet, but at least I've started it. I'm really happy about that. It's always important for me to have the second sock started, and then that usually helps me to get it done as well. Yeah, but as there are beads in the pattern, in the cuff of, not the cuff, the leg of the sock has beads in it, so I need a bit more time and concentration and yeah, to work the beads into the sock. So that's the first pair of socks, and then that I'm showing you, it's the second I'm mentioning. And then the third pair of socks that I have on the needles are the alpaca lace mohair silk socks that I'm knitting for my sister. These are spiral socks. I showed them to her last week. She tried them on. She really likes them. They're really soft, and I've added a bit of length, and I'm hoping that this is long enough for her so I can start the toe, but I didn't want to do that without her trying them on. So I'll see her again this afternoon, and then we can decide whether it's long enough or whether I need to add a few more pattern repeats, and then I'm pretty sure I'll finish the first sock this week and then start the second one, and at some point she'll get these socks. I've weighed the other alpaca sock, spiral sock that I knitted a few weeks ago, and I used up almost the 50 grams that are in the ball, so they weigh 47 grams, and I've weighed this just for fun, and without the toe, but with the needle, it's 30 grams. So so I know this is going to be lighter. It's just the question is how much. And it's, I mean, it's less than 20 grams difference, probably, but still, every gram counts if you're hiking and carrying everything around. And that's what my sister's planning to do. So I did not start another new sock. My plan was to cast on a new pair of socks, but because of the new yarn that came into the shop, I decided to cast on other things, and I'll show you one of them now. It's not going to be a sock, but it's going to be a wrist warmer, and I just realized I've got myself organized the wrong way, so I have to put those things aside. I'll show those later. I started a pair of wrist warmers out of this book, SoxxMixx. It's a German book, not sure whether there's an English translation. It's by Kirsten Balke, and it's the fourth book in the series. So she had Socks Book 1 and Socks Book 2, and then Socks Look, I think, and this is the SoxxMixx. And I am knitting this pattern. So this uses 3 colors, and I decided to use different colors, and I chose to do them in black, dark gray, and light gray, and this is what they look like. And as you might see, I used the dark background and the light gray for the circles. The original has the light gray as the background, and then the dark pink for the pattern, but I didn't want to have black circles, but I still wanted the black in the ribbing, so I changed colors around a little bit, changed the order around. So I have the black, the darker gray, and the light gray as the contrast color here. Yeah, and the yarn I'm using that's this yarn, and it's a mix of baby alpaca and silk. It's 70% baby alpaca, 30% silk. It has 200 meters for 50 grams. And just checking, yeah, the numbers were right. And it's by Hansa Farm, my favorite alpaca company, small German company, but they ship worldwide. I checked today on their website. There's a long list of countries that they ship to, so you should be able to get them from almost anywhere. And these are the colors that they sell. The black, the dark gray, and the brown are on the bottom. And these are all the other colors. So I could have done it in almost the same colors as in the book, but I intentionally wanted to do something different, especially with the gray and black. I can wear the wrist warmers with almost everything. Even with this pullover, I could wear them. Yeah, but these are the colors that they've produced so far. And it's a very, very soft and very, it's very silky feeling. So I think the silk is quite, even though it's only 30%, it's quite prominent. And it's a lot less hairy than the alpaca usually is. It feels quite dense. It's probably not the best yarn for color work because the yarn doesn't grip. So you have to be really careful not to lose your stitches. But I just love the look, so I still decided to do the color work pattern, and also means I can use more colors and show what they look like. Yeah. So this is one of the new cast-ons that I hadn't really planned on, but when the yarn came, I thought I have to knit something to show off the yarn. So that was the reason for that cast-on. Another project, a smaller project I'm knitting out of sock yarn is this cowl. Oh, by the way, the first sock that I showed you today and the ribbing in this cowl, that's the blue yarn that I used to knit another version of the Strider cowl. So I just love this color. Very nice. Yeah, but the main part of this cowl is this opal yarn that's being sold in Japan. So it's one of the colors that's exclusively produced for Japan, and I actually bought the yarn in Japan 2 years ago when it was still possible to go there. Right now, I think we still can't go there, but at some point it should be possible again. Anyway, I'm knitting this beautiful pattern out of the book Knit Happy with Self-Striping Yarn by Telly B Knits, and didn't do a lot on it last week, but I added a few rounds and I hope to finish it soon. So that's that. Then what do I have? I showed you this. Oh yeah, I think it's the last small project. It's the Mystery Knit Along by Sarah Shearer. It's her 7th Mystery Gnome. If you don't want to see it, you have to look away now. I have not done the last clue because that came yesterday and I didn't have the time. Didn't want to work yesterday. It's not all work, but still didn't get around to doing that. But this is as far as I got. So as you can see, this is quite a special thing. I had to knit a long I-cord, and this is what you do with it. These were the bits that I knitted on the first clue. They are sewn on here, and this is the body of the gnome. And the clue that came in yesterday will finish this off. I'll show you next week. And yeah, it's a very bright one. It goes nicely with my pullover, and I really like the way it looks. Didn't enjoy making this too much, but still, it's a fun one. Took it out of the picture in case anybody looked away. Yeah, so that was the last small project, then on to the bigger projects. And I continued knitting on my Glacier Tunic. It's another pattern by Jorge Locatelli, and it's out of one of her interpretations books. I think it's Interpretations 5. It's one of those books that she does with Vera Velimaki. And in her book, it's one color and it's a tunic. I'm using 5 different colors and I'm knitting it into a dress. And that was one of the projects I didn't have with me on my holiday, so hadn't worked on it in quite a while. So I picked it up and continued knitting. And this is all Opal sock yarn. That's the first color. The sleeves are knit with color 2 and 3. Then this is color 2 and 3. And that is color 4. And I've always finished with color 4, and I've started striping in color 5. So color 4 is this color out of the Comedy series, and this is my color 5, and that was the Energy series. That's I think that came out 4 years ago, and the Comedy series was either 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. And so every time I want to change to the next color, there's I do 12 rounds of switching both colors. So I've done 2 stripes of the new color, and I'm still striping the old color in between. And then once I've finished with that, then I'm only knitting with my last color, and that's actually going to be the last color. And in the pattern, what she does is she does short rows to sort of get a straight line on the bottom, but I'm not planning on doing that. I'll just keep going in that fashion with this V shape, and I'll just do a some kind of border so it doesn't roll, probably in garter stitch. I'm not 100% sure yet. And then I'll just keep this V shape for my dress. That's the plan. And I really enjoyed knitting that again. And this is one of the things that I can fairly mindlessly knit on. I have stitch markers in all the places where there are increases or decreases. So it's, and all the stitches in between, they're getting more and more because it has an A line. So there's a lot of knitting to be done in between where I don't have to look or concentrate. So I can do that while I talk, and sometimes even while I teach, depending on how much help my students need. So that's that. Then I continued crocheting on the crochet test that I'm doing. And that's another pattern by Heather from HG Designs Crochet. The pattern is called Allsorts. I am using the thickest sock yarn that Opal does. It's double thickness of the sock weight sock yarn. I know some call it DK. I thought it was more like Aran weight or worsted weight or something like that. I'm not too sure. In German, it's a 4-ply, 6-ply, and 8-ply. So this is the 8-ply, and I'm holding that double. And last week, I showed you all the squares. I'd finished all the squares, but I hadn't attached them all together. That's done now. So this is the back. All the pieces are together. And then the fronts are like this. And I've actually finished the first sleeve. So I'm not using the yarn with the yellow and pink anymore. I'm just using the main color to do the sleeves and the ribbing. So my whole jacket is a lot more fitted than the pattern calls for. The pattern is a very oversized pattern, but I felt it was too big for me, so I chose the smaller size, and my gauge is a little tighter, so it comes out a little smaller than the pattern calls for, but it still fits me very nicely. The armhole or the sleeve was supposed to go to here, so it's a really big armhole, and I decided I didn't want that. It's still going to be a really heavy cardigan, so I only chose to do the armhole to here. I did the decreases the way she describes them. Really happy with that. Now I need to repeat it on this side, so I have 2 sleeves, and now you can see that the top square from the back is sort of folding over because the front only has 3 squares, and it's supposed to line up down here, which means the 4th square sort of folds over the shoulder, and this sits in the neck, which means you really have a nice warm neck in this jacket. And then once I've done the sleeves, there'll be some ribbing down here, and then some ribbing up and down the fronts of the cardigan. Really, really happy with that. I'm using, as I said, the 8-ply sock yarn by Opal. They come in 150 gram balls. These are yarn balls number 4 and 5. and I will definitely need 6 and 7. I hope I won't need 8. If I use 7 balls of yarn, this will be more than a kilo of yarn. So this is going to be a really big and heavy cardigan, but I'm really looking forward to having this, especially in my shop that tends to be fairly cold, and I love the way it looks, and it's quite soft. It's crocheted fairly loosely, and yeah, really looking forward to finishing it. And this is supposed to be next week's finished object, because the deadline for the test is this week, either Saturday or Sunday, I forgot, but I really have to get a move on finishing that sleeve and then crocheting the ribbing, so that I can finish it on time and can give all my feedback, and then the pattern should be released sometime after that. I will link, oh no, she doesn't sell on Ravelry. I have a link to her website anyway underneath the video, so you can check out the other patterns that are already released, and I will let you know once I learn that the pattern has been released. And she also announces it on Instagram. If you're interested, you can follow her on Instagram, HGDC. There's Heather, I forget her last name, HG Designs Crochet is what she calls her channel, and I'm pretty sure you can find it and you can follow her and find out when the pattern is going to be released. Yeah, so that's the biggest project I'm working on at the moment. Now we get to the knit-alongs, and well, the blanket is probably as big a project if you count the whole project, but as I'm knitting it in smaller pieces, it doesn't seem that big right now. So last week I showed you the three squares that I had finished, and I said I wanted to try and maybe do 2 squares. That did not quite work out, but I added 1 complete square and I started another one, so it's like almost 1.5 squares. And for this week I am trying to finish this square and do this square so that I can make up for the time that I've lost by not knitting on the blanket. This is the Optic Blanket. It's a free pattern on the internet, and I'm using what's called the 6-ply sock yarn by Opal. Not only Opal, I'm using all the sock yarn I have in that weight, and all the colors are leftover yarns. This is one of my favorite pullovers that I knit. What's it called? Can't remember right now, but it's a beautiful one. Yeah, so that's the one knit along, and then the other knit along was the Geckolino. And as I finished my first one, I was wondering whether I should either do a new knit along, but hadn't really planned anything. So I just started the next Geckolino. And this time I'm using the thicker sock yarn, again, what's called the 6-ply in German. And this is one of the new yarns the other new yarn that came in. So I showed you the Alpaca Silk by Hansa Farm, and then Opal came out with this series Paradise. It's 6-ply sock yarn. That's the color I'm using for the Geckolino. I'll show the cast on in a minute. I'll just quickly show you the other colors in the series. So this is a very bright color and very happy color that I like a lot. We've had an 8-ply sock yarn that was a bit similar to that, and there was one of the glitter yarns by Opal had a color combination that was similar to that. This is a very interesting color with green, purple, turquoise, and a bit of grey in it. So I was tempted to use that for the Geckolino, but then I thought the other one was a bit happier. And this is one of the colors that was in the subscription a couple of parcels back. So I knitted socks out of that color, and now this is the same color in the thicker yarn. It's a very nice red orangey color. Then we have another color mix with a bit of grey in it. So this is the red and purple. They both have grey in it. They both have purple in it. So it's interesting. But with the red, it's a different, goes into a different direction. Then we have another one with red and a darker grey and a bit of a turquoisey color. So again, I think you could probably combine these 2 colors and get some really interesting effects. then there's a blue mix of different blues with a fairly light blue in it. So that's what makes this color combination different from other blue yarns that we've had by Opal. Really like this color combination. And then the so-called men's color, another gray mix. That's yeah, they often have a gray mix in every series. This is a fairly quiet gray mix. Sometimes there's stronger contrast between the lightest and the darkest. Yeah, but I like that too. Yeah, so this is new colors by Opal. I know you can get Opal most places in the world. So if you like that, I hope you find a shop or an online shop that sells this yarn. And as I said, I'm knitting another Geckolino, and I chose a color with green in it because I want to donate this shawl to the same organization that I knit all the green socks for. They give them to women who suffer from ovarian cancer, and I think they want to start giving things to women with other forms of cancer as well. And they not only take socks now, but you can knit hats, especially for chemo patients, but you can also knit other things as long as they have some green in them and they keep them warm. We can donate whatever we want, basically, I think. So this is another Geckolino. Because the yarn is thicker than the other one and thicker than the one that's called for in the pattern, I cast on fewer stitches and I knit fewer rows of garter stitch before I did the lace part. I did that part exactly as written because I didn't know how to make it smaller, but I think that's okay. And now I'll just continue knitting the garter portion and then the eyelet portion, and basically knit it as written in the pattern. I'll see if I want to change anything along the way. And as these are 150 gram balls, I want to see how far I get with one of these. The yardage is exactly the same as with the sock weight yarn 100 gram balls. So I just thought it was be interesting to see how those two shawls compare. And once I finish that, I'll make sure to take a picture and probably also show you here how these two shawls look compared to each other. Now, one last thing before I sign off is Hansa Farm sell these tiny little toy alpacas, and they are handmade in Peru. I've shown them before, but last time I showed you I only had a few colors because the others weren't available, but they're available now, and I just had to show you. They are handmade by women who otherwise wouldn't have a job, so they can earn their own money, they can help their families, they can send their children to school because they have enough money to feed everyone in the family. And then the money that Hansa Farm make from selling these alpacas all goes into a children's home in Peru. So you can buy these alpaca just because they're so sweet and so adorable, and you will help people and you will help a good cause. And this is one of my favorites. It's the pink one. And so I wanted to have the pink one and the grey mixed one for myself. I ordered all the colours that were there just because I want to help the good cause and I just love them. And then I saw the black one and I think it's so sweet. And I think they really go together very nicely. So this is my personal little herd. But you can also get these colors, and then you can get the green and the dark brown one that I showed the last time I showed them in the video. So yeah, they're just too sweet and fun and nice. So that's it. That's everything I wanted to show you. All the new things that came into my shop, everything that I knit and crocheted. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.